Yo guys, what's up? HexxInkworks here. So as you guys know, I did a Montana cans unboxing a few weeks ago, and along with that came a acrylic marker line review. Now within the first unboxing there was a bunch of black marker line nibs, and in the second unboxing there's the markers to go with these. With how I am, I prefer keeping the lines together, for example keeping the black ink or the black paint with the black markers. You don't personally have to do this, you can put some of the acrylic line in one of the black markers, it's not going to make any difference at all. And with that being said, I'll be filling these empty markers with the black ink that they've supplied me. And with this being black, it's quite opaque, but with the colours which they do supply, they offer a more translucent look to them. And all of the Montana black dye ink grades are of an alcohol base and offer a high UV resistance. To accompany the ink we have an extra fine 2mm round tip marker. Now I've used varying markers before which are scaled at 2mm, and this one seems a bit smaller than 2mm, so I'm actually questioning its proper size, so I'll just be referring it as the extra fine marker. Alongside this is the Montana Crusher, which is Montana Cans' take on a mop marker. The tip is scaled at 18mm and appears to be of the mohair quality tips instead of the normal tips. These offer better usage on rougher surfaces, and the marker can hold 50ml of ink. Alongside this is the typical paint marker that all of us know and love, which is the 15mm standard nib, and they've also supplied me with a pre-filled version which comes in purple. Now I'll move on to actually testing the markers, and with this being such a small nib and with it being ink, it doesn't take very long to juice up at all. As you can see, since the nib is well juiced up, the marker doesn't struggle to write on the paper at all. And with the paper being the low GSM that it is, it slightly bleeds as well, especially if you hold the marker in the same place for a few seconds. Obviously if you've pumped the marker a lot more ink gets distributed to the nib, and this can cause drips. If this was a non-porous surface such as plastic, this would have definitely dripped. While the extra fine marker was obviously a pump marker, the mop marker is obviously gravity fed and force fed. First I have to give it a few dabs to get it juiced up, but once it's juiced up it glides along the paper. This is a non-drip version, so the next line I'll do will be a drip version, and I've squeezed with a significant amount of force but not a lot, and you can see just how much it's dripped, as causing drips with ink instead of paint is so much easier. Now moving on to the 15mm marker. With this nib being a lot bigger, it's going to take a little bit more time to juice the nib up. But once it is juiced up, you can just see how, like with all the others, it simply glides across the paper, leaving a nice solid black line. As always, I'm just showing you the different marks you can make by using the corners, the whole nib, and even getting calligraphic strokes. As you can see here, I'm just mucking around, pumping the marker and making a line just to try and see how much effort you need to put into getting drips with this marker. Now I'll just show you all the markers side by side so you compare them for yourselves in regards to scale and opacity. And now I'll move on to the other surface, which is the non-porous surface, which is plastic. Once again, the extra fine marker writes really well on the plastic, even better than the paper. I can feel how it glides over the surface and leaves a nice black mark. Below this I'm mucking around trying to get some drips, but for whatever reason I can't really seem to get the marker to drip, even though I've pumped it quite a lot. And you can see how I've pumped it a lot because I'm quite literally flicking ink from the chamber onto the plastic. Now I'll move on to the mop, and with me writing the 18 I didn't really put any pressure to cause drips, but you can see just how thick and opaque the ink is. While with the first M I applied a little pressure, and you can see there's quite a few drips coming from it just from me applying a little bit of pressure. Now with the underline I apply a significant amount of pressure, and this causes lots of drips, as you can see. From flipping the board around to use the 15mm marker on, you can see where the drips end from the harder 18mm mop push, as it drips down easily half of the board. Like everything else, the 15mm glides over the plastic and leaves a similar sort of output to the mop nib as if it wouldn't be squeezed, as there's a nice amount of ink left on the surface but not too much for it to drip. Once again, you can just see me prattling around with the marker and the valve to see how hard it is to cause drips for you guys. You can see on the fourth line, which I was quite aggressive with, just as that starts to drip multiple drips, the third line starts dripping slowly as well. Now I'll move on to the final marker, which is the 15mm standard nib again, but just with a different ink. This ink is obviously the purple ink, and since this ink is distributed in the same way as before, being via the same 15mm tip, it's not going to vary that much from the previous test. However, it is obviously different ink, so we're more looking for how the actual ink reacts instead of the marker and ink combination on the surfaces. With how this purple ink is, it offers a lot more translucent characteristics compared to what the black does, as the black is just a nice solid opaque black, while it is a very common trait in coloured inks to have a somewhat translucency about them. As you can see from the video while I've been talking, I've just been doing the same sort of thing as what I've been doing with all the other markers, just generally playing around with it and then having a sort of drip test just to see how easy it is to make a drip for you guys. Once again, I'd like to thank Montana Cans and Global Art Supplies for supplying me with these products to do reviews for you. I really appreciate it how they're going off their own back to send me some supplies so I can make more content for you guys. This has been HexxInkworks reviewing the Montana Cans black line of markers. Hope you've enjoyed this video guys. Peace out.